for joining us for the Springfield Business and Economic Review. I am your host, Sarah Wolin, with the Greater Springfield Chamber of Commerce. Today we have with us Donna Rogers. She is with Rogers HR Consulting and will share with us information about HR consulting, how it can benefit businesses, and different opportunities that you can take advantage of. Donna, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me here.
So HR, what is human resources? Why is it important to businesses?
Well, the HR part of it I get a lot. What is HR? And HR, standing for Human Resources, is basically the field. The Department of Labor has actually said that it is an actual field of study and an actual career path that people can take, and is in this day and age required to have a bachelor's degree at a very minimum. And the businesses, there's a lot to be interested in with regard to business, because 60 to 70% typically of a employer's cost for their overall expenses has to do with employment and hiring, firing, compensation, the benefits, the training, everything. All of those things add up. And if you look at that from a dollars and cents standpoint, it makes perfect sense to be very important to have a focus on strategically planning your human resources.
You're right. So many businesses probably spend a lot of time thinking about, what kind of paper we buy for the office or something like that. And that really is a very minimal expense when you look at the expense that people put into their labor force and who they're hiring, their employees.
Exactly right. There's always a focus on sales and marketing and materials and facility and all of those things. But if you look at the overall expenses, most of them go to the employers. And there's a lot of things going on right now in the field where the economy has affected human resources, certainly, and we'll talk about that more, I'm sure. But in particular, the labor market we're foreseeing the labor shrinkage because of the baby boomer generation starting to retire in 2011, which is just 2 years away.
That's right around the corner.
Exactly.
So businesses really need to be prepared on what they're going to be doing with their employees for this time.
Yes.
You also mentioned it's a field. HR is a field. How did you start into this field? What got you going with it?
Well, I didn't grow up to want to be an HR professional.
That wasn't what you said in 3rd grade?
No, I didn't. I didn't even know what HR was.
I was going to say, most kids probably don't even know.
Exactly. But I was in the field of communications and had my first position was a fundraising position, and I also was actually marketing director of White Oaks Mall, and because of that public appearance and opportunity to speak publicly to hundreds of people at a time, a friend of mine who was a recruiter at the time thought, hey, you should be a training specialist. And so I got into the field under the profession of training, which is typically under the umbrella of human resources, and then continue to work through all of the different types of specialties, and very quickly got into management in 1997 and have been in management and consulting ever since.
So it really goes to demonstrate how diverse the field of human resources are. So businesses really need to be well versed in all those areas. Yes. I know you mentioned training is important to keep up with trends and such. I know the Chamber has a partnership with you and to offer HR training. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yes, we have since '07. The fall of '07, have been providing local businesses in the area training programs on a variety of different topics. And this is, in particular, very helpful to supervisors, managers, HR professionals, of course, but owners, business owners, anybody who has either the responsibility directly for managing employees, or anyone who oversees people who are responsible for that.
That really gets to the point that you don't have to have HR in your title to need human resource training.
Exactly. Yes, and the programs are open to anyone, and it doesn't matter what kind of experience or title you have.
Yeah. You could have 2 employees and need to know some of this information.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, the employment laws, the way they're written, they typically identify employers by the number of employees they have. And typically, a lot of times I get questions in reference to, well, I only have 150 employees about 9 months out of the year, and the rest of the time I'm just part-time, or maybe 4 months out of the year. Well, that's not how they look at it. It depends on how many people are on the payroll within the year. So it doesn't matter seasonally. And so each level of number of employees, starting out like typically, well, it depends on whether you're looking at state or federal laws. It could start out with as few as 4 employees and go up in increments to 15, 20, 25, and 50, and then 100.
So even as your business grows, you might need to get updates on this.
Exactly.
I know one of the areas you started with doing trainings was something called HR Basics.
Yes.
What type of information is covered there, and what was benefited from there?
HR Basics, all of the courses or the seminars that we do so far at least have been about 3 hours long, and with a break you get about 2.5 hours officially. And so that course really in 2.5 hours went through very quickly a little bit of every topic under the HR field, and highlighted specifically what kinds of things people need to be aware of in general. And so then the courses after that, we had termination, there were how to terminate an employee, how to do performance evaluation, things like that. Those then go into the specifics.
Okay. You mentioned termination. That's always something that people don't want to think about having to do. But often something, if you have to do it, you better make sure and do it right.
Oh, exactly.
What are some of the things you covered during that course?
In the termination program, we talk about the different types of employment. We talk about the different type of employee, the employee that is actually payrolled versus the employee who is actually contract worker. We talk about the specifics of what you need to say or do, and how some of the things that you say, even if it's not in writing, can obligate you toward a long-term commitment to an employee that is different than what we consider in the state of Illinois, for example, as we're an at-will state. And employers tend to think that, well, I don't have to have an excuse, I don't have to have a reason, I don't have to have anything in reference to my decision. And that is true based on how the at-will statement is written, but because of the protected classes, typically, that there are, both state and federal, there are so many reasons why a person would say that the reason why they were terminated or let go or laid off or whatever is because of X.
And that could cause some confusion.
Yes, it's important to know what X is and how you can kind of get yourself in trouble. And it's usually not always the business owner or manager that does that. It might be something the supervisor says, not realizing that what they say is a commitment to the employee and can be held against the entire employer. So
that is very challenging.
Yes.
But then on the flip side of that, we can look at hiring employees. And one of the important parts of hiring is interviewing. I know you did a workshop on that. And again, whether you have 3 employees or 300, you have to know how to interview your employees. What are some topics covered there?
We talk about